Here's something nobody tells you about becoming a legend. Your first 50 goals are absolute hell. It feels like climbing Everest in flip-flops while everyone's watching and waiting for you to fall. You train, you sweat, you sacrifice, and the scoreboard barely moves. Then something extraordinary happens. The goals start flowing on their own. And before you know it, you're not chasing records anymore. Records are chasing you. I'm gonna tell you why my first 50 goals mattered more than my next 750 combined. And why everything after that threshold was just momentum showing off. Most people think scoring 800 plus goals is a straight line. You score 1, then 2, then 10, and it all adds up nice and neat like a shopping list. Wrong. Goal scoring greatness is more like building a rocket. Nothing, 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 then suddenly you've left the atmosphere and you're wondering how the hell you got so far so fast. Those first 50 goals were my launch pad. Uncomfortable, slow, and nobody was sure this kid from Madeira would even make it. But that's where all the foundational work happened.
Let me break down why this specific number matters more than any other milestone. It's not arbitrary. It's not motivational nonsense. It's pure mathematical truth wrapped in athletic psychology.
And once you understand it, you'll stop obsessing over talent and start obsessing over something far more powerful. Consistency and compound momentum. The reason your first 50 goals feel impossible is because you're doing all the heavy lifting. Every goal comes from your speed, your skill, your discipline. You are the engine. You are the fuel. You are everything. It's exhausting, because it is exhausting. But here's what changes after 50 goals. The momentum starts working for you instead of against you. When I scored my 50th professional goal, something shifted in my mind. Defenders started respecting me differently. Teammates trusted me more. My confidence compounded. That 50th goal wasn't just another tally. It was crossing the threshold from promising youngster to legitimate threat. And once you cross that line, the math of goal scoring completely changes. Think about it this way. When you've scored 10 goals, defenders don't lose sleep over you. When you've scored 50, they're watching film of you all week. When you've scored 200, they're changing their entire defensive strategy because of you. That's not just skill progression. That's compound respect. And compound respect creates compound opportunities. Now compare me at 50 goals to me at 500 goals. Same player, same work ethic, but completely different psychological warfare. At 50 goals, I had to prove myself every single match. At 500, defenders were already beaten mentally before kickoff. That's the power of the compounding effect in football. Your reputation works for you 24/7, creating space, creating fear, creating goals. The beautiful part, the part that makes me smile every time I think about it, is what happened after those first 50 goals. Because once I established that foundation, getting to 100 took less time. Then 200 came even faster. Not because I suddenly became more talented, but because my goal scoring machine had employees now. Teammates making better runs, defenders making more mistakes. Referees giving me more benefit of the doubt. The entire ecosystem adjusted to amplify my output. I've lived this journey long enough to know this isn't luck. It's just arithmetic combined with obsession. But obsession, my friend, is where most talented players fail spectacularly. They score 20 goals and think they've made it. Or they hit 30 and decide partying is more important than training. And just like that, they reset their momentum to zero. The painful truth about goal scoring greatness is that the first 10% of the journey takes about 90% of the mental strength. You're running in the dark, wondering if you even belong at this level. Then you hit that critical mass somewhere around 50 to 100 goals, and suddenly you can see the mountain top. The path gets clearer. the goals get easier, and the football gods start smiling on you. Let me tell you what those first 50 goals really represented for me. It wasn't about the numbers themselves. It was about crossing the threshold from linear growth to exponential growth. Below that threshold, you're in the proving phase. You're the only one who believes. Above it, you've entered the domination phase. Your presence starts creating goals before you even touch the ball. That's the inflection point. That's when legendary status stops being a dream and becomes inevitable. My path from 50 to 800 goals wasn't magic. It was understanding the rhythm of compound momentum. When you score your 51st goal, you're not just one goal ahead. You're psychologically months ahead because defenders remember your 50th. When you score your 100th, you're not just at a century. You're in a different stratosphere of mental dominance. Here's the rough timeline that nobody talks about. I scored my first 50 professional goals in about 4 years at Sporting and early Manchester United, grinding, learning, often invisible in big matches. Then the next 50 came in roughly 2 years, then 100 goals started taking me 18 months. By the time I hit my prime at Real Madrid, I was scoring 50 to 60 goals per season, not per career, per season. That's not because I suddenly got better legs. It's because the compound momentum of reputation, fear, space, and confidence all started working together. My first 50 goals bought me the credibility. Everything after that was just collecting the compound interest. 20 years sounds like forever when you're 18 and just scored your first professional goal. But when you're 38 and you've got 800 plus goals, those 20 years feel like a highlight reel. The difference between players who get there and players who don't isn't talent. Most top flight footballers have absurd talent. It's the refusal to do stupid things with your body and career during those 20 years. Because here's the thing about goal scoring momentum. It's fragile. One major injury can cost you years of progress. Partying too much and losing your sharpness, that's not just missing training. That's murdering your compound momentum. Letting your ego destroy your work ethic. You're not just being arrogant. You're borrowing against time you'll never get back. And time is the only ingredient that makes legendary careers work. I've seen countless talented players mess this up in spectacular fashion. They score 30 goals in a breakout season and feel invincible. They start believing their own hype, skip extra training, gain weight, lose focus. Then the goals dry up and they spend the next 5 years wondering what happened. Meanwhile, I scored 30 and immediately ask myself, how do I score 50 next season? The secret to getting from 50 to 800 isn't complicated. It's just wildly unpopular. You have to do nothing stupid. Keep training when your body screams at you to rest. Keep shooting when everyone says you're selfish. Ignore the noise. Let the momentum compound. When form drops, and it will, you train harder. When critics say you finished, you prove them wrong in the next match. When younger players arrive, you remind them why longevity beats flash. What really accelerates a goal-scoring career isn't trying to be spectacular every match. It's avoiding the things that destroy careers. Injuries from poor training habits are the number one killer. Bad lifestyle choices are number 2. Ego is number 3. Every goal I scored after 30 years old exists because I avoided those 3 pitfalls while everyone else succumbed to them. The people who reach 500 plus career goals are the ones who resist temptation. They get offered parties and say no. They get offered lazy summers and train instead. They live like monks while everyone else lives like rock stars. It's not sexy, it's not fun on Instagram, but it works because momentum doesn't care about your social life. Let me paint you a clearer picture. Say you're a and one 8-year-old striker who just scored your first professional goal. Maybe you came from a small town nobody's heard of. Maybe you trained on broken fields while kids in academies had pristine grass. Doesn't matter how you got here. What matters is what you do next. You're not training like I did at 18. 6 hours a day minimum. Diet dialed in. Sleep optimized. Film study obsessive. At this rate, here's what happens. By 22, you've scored about 40 to 50 goals. You're probably not a star yet because you've been grinding in lower divisions or limited minutes. But something's shifting. Coaches trust you more. Your technique is sharper. The mental game is forming. You're building the foundation. By 25, you've crossed 100 goals. Now people are paying attention. You're starting more matches, getting more service. Your reputation is starting to precede you. The compound momentum is building. By 28, you've hit 200 goals. You're an established striker now. Defenders study you. Commentators know your name. Young players watch your highlights. The momentum is rolling. By 32, you've crossed 400 goals. Your legend status is cemented. You're breaking records. Kids wear your jersey. The boulder is rolling itself now. By 38, like me, you're looking at 800 plus goals. 20 years from that first goal, you're in the history books forever. Not because you were born more talented than everyone else, but because you stayed disciplined, stayed consistent, and let compound momentum do the heavy lifting. The tragedy is that most talented players never get to experience this. Not because they can't, but because they won't. They won't train hard enough for long enough to hit 50 goals. They won't resist the urge to party when they start getting attention. They won't maintain fitness through injuries and setbacks. And they definitely won't stay patient for 20 years while everyone around them is chasing shortcuts. But here's what I want you to understand. Those 20 years are happening anyway. Whether you train or not, whether you stay disciplined or not, 20 years from now, you're going to be 20 years older. The only question is whether you'll be 20 years older with 800 goals or 20 years older with nothing but what-if stories. Time is the most democratic resource in football. Everyone gets the same 90 minutes per match. Everyone ages at the same speed. But how you use that time, specifically how you leverage it for compound momentum, determines everything. The player who starts taking goal scoring seriously at 18 will have exponentially more career goals at 38 than the player who starts at 22, even if they have similar talent. Because those first 4 years of compound momentum are doing work that can never be replicated. That's why the first 50 goals are so critical. They're not just numbers. They're a momentum accelerator. The faster you get there, the more time you give compound momentum to work its magic. Every year you waste partying or being lazy is a year you're robbing from your future legendary status. And your future self will either thank you or curse you for what you're doing right now. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great, but 50 goals feels impossible. I get it. When you're staring at your first professional goal, 50 looks like Mount Everest. But let me reframe it for you. 50 goals is just 10 goals per season for 5 years. Or 5 goals per season for 10 years. Break it down into bite-sized pieces and suddenly it's not impossible. It's just uncomfortable. The tragedy is that most talented players never get to experience this. Not because they can't, but because they won't. They won't train hard enough for long enough to hit 50 goals. They won't resist the urge to party when they start getting attention. They won't maintain fitness through injuries and setbacks. And they definitely won't stay patient for 20 years while everyone around them is chasing shortcuts. But here's what I want you to understand. Those 20 years are happening anyway. Whether you train or not, whether you stay disciplined or not, 20 years from now, you're going to be 20 years older. The only question is whether you'll be 20 years older with 800 goals or 20 years older with nothing but what-if stories. Time is the most democratic resource in football. Everyone gets the same 90 minutes per match. Everyone ages at the same speed. But how you use that time, specifically how you leverage it for compound momentum, determines everything. The player who starts taking goal scoring seriously at 18 will have exponentially more career goals at 38 than the player who starts at 22, even if they have similar talent. Because those first 4 years of compound momentum are doing work that can never be replicated. That's why the first 50 goals are so critical. They're not just numbers. They're a momentum accelerator. The faster you get there, the more time you give compound momentum to work its magic. Every year you waste partying or being lazy is a year you're robbing from your future legendary status. And your future self will either thank you or curse you for what you're doing right now. Now, I know what you're thinking. This all sounds great, but 50 goals feels impossible. I get it. When you're staring at your first professional goal, 50 looks like Mount Everest. But let me reframe it for you. 50 goals is just 10 goals per season for 5 years. Or 5 goals per season for 10 years. Break it down into bite-sized pieces and suddenly it's not impossible. It's just uncomfortable. Let me tell you about the power of the second 400 goals. If my first 50 to 400 goals took 12 to 15 years, guess how long it took to go from 400 to 800? About 7 to 8 years with the same discipline. That's it. 7 years to score the second 400 versus 15 years for the first 400. The compound momentum really started getting absurd. I didn't score faster because my legs got younger. I scored faster because everything compounded. My positioning, knowledge, my anticipation, my reputation creating space, my mental toughness, my teammates' trust in me, all of it working together in an exponential curve. This is why legendary players say legendary. We understand this rhythm. We know that once you hit critical mass around 200 to 300 goals, legendary status becomes almost inevitable if you don't sabotage it with injuries or ego or laziness. Young players here train hard for 20 years and their eyes glaze over. It sounds like forever. But ask any retired legend how fast those 20 years went. They'll tell you it was a blur. Time moves different when you're living it versus remembering it. The key is setting up habits today that your future legendary self will thank you for. Because here's the brutal reality I learned. You're going to be 38 years old whether you like it or not. That day is coming. The only variable is whether you'll be 38 with 800 goals or 38 with a beer belly and regrets. And that variable is being determined right now by what you're doing with your training today. The biggest lie in football is that you need more talent to become a legend. You don't. You need more discipline. I've seen players with average talent retire with 300 plus goals, and I've seen players with extraordinary talent retire with 50 goals and the What If documentary. Talent is not greatness. Consistency is greatness. How much you train versus how much you waste determines everything. If you train 6 days a week while your competitor trains 3, you're not twice as good. You're exponentially better because of compound momentum. The player doing less will peak early. The player doing more will peak late and stay there longer. Most players expand their social life to match their success. They score 20 goals and immediately start living like they scored 200. That's the trap. Your lifestyle should lag your success by years, maybe decades. When you have a breakout season, pretend you didn't. Keep the same training schedule, keep the same diet, keep the same focus. That's how you turn one good season into a legendary career. The path to 800 goals isn't sexy. It's not going to make you feel like a genius at parties. You won't have exciting stories about natural talent or lucky breaks. You'll just have a goal tally that makes people's jaws drop, and that's exactly how it should be. Legends whisper. Average players shout. The people flexing on social media about their lifestyle usually have short careers. The actual legends are eating plain chicken and rice at midnight after everyone else went to the club. We know something the flashy crowd doesn't. Looking like a legend and being a legend are opposites. You can't do both. Every hour you spend on distractions is an hour that can't compound into goals. That's the trade-off. And most players choose the appearance over the reality. They'd rather look successful for a few years than be legendary for their entire lives. It's insane when you spell it out, but that's what most talented players do. The first 50 goals taught me discipline. They forced me to make hard choices. They showed me what I was really made of.
Because scoring that many goals while living in a world designed to distract you is an act of rebellion. Every party invitation, every social media notification, every shortcut opportunity is telling you to quit.
Choosing to train instead is swimming against a cultural tidal wave. But that's exactly why it works. The things that build legendary careers aren't popular, they're boring, they're slow, they don't make good Instagram content, and that's why they're available to anyone disciplined enough to pursue them. If becoming a legend was fun and easy and fast, everyone would do it. The fact that it requires sacrifice is the moat that protects your future legendary status. Here's what nobody tells you. Getting to 50 goals is the hardest part of scoring 800. After that, it's just discipline and not screwing up. The heavy lifting happens in the early years. You're building the foundation, you're establishing habits, you're proving to yourself that you can delay gratification. Once you've done that, the rest is just compound momentum. So if you're sitting there with 20 goals or 30 goals or even 40 goals in your career, don't get discouraged. You're closer than you think. Every goal you score is working harder than the last one. The climb gets easier as you get higher because compound momentum is doing more of the work. The worst thing you can do is give up right before the magic happens. Most players quit around 30 to 40 goals because they're exhausted. They've been grinding for years and they don't feel like legends yet, so they slack off, gain weight, lose form, and start over at a smaller club. Don't be that player. Push through, get to 50. Cross that threshold. Let the exponential curve take over. Your first 50 goals are buying you legendary status. Not today's status, but future status. They're buying you the option to be remembered forever. To have kids wear your jersey 50 years from now. To be studied in coaching courses. To live on in football history. That's what you're really training for. Not trophies alone. Immortality. And here's the final piece that makes it all worthwhile. Once you hit 800 career goals, you're not just a player anymore. You're a phenomenon. You're a standard. You're proof that discipline beats talent over time. That's more valuable than any trophy I've won. This isn't a fantasy. This is just discipline plus time plus compound momentum. 3 ingredients that anyone with professional talent can access. You don't need my genetics. You don't need Messi's touch. You don't need to be born in a football academy. You just need to start, stay consistent, and refuse to sabotage yourself for 20 years. The question isn't whether this works. I'm living proof it does. The question is whether you'll stick with it long enough to find out. Because I promise you, 20 years from now, you'll either be living proof that compound momentum works, or another talented player wondering why everyone else became legends while you stayed average. Your first 50 goals aren't just numbers, they're a test. They're asking whether you're serious about legendary status or just daydreaming about it. Most players fail that test. They talk about becoming legends but never train like legends. Or they train hard for a year and quit when it gets uncomfortable. Or they stay consistent until one injury or one bad season breaks their spirit. Don't be most players. Get to 50 goals, whatever it takes. Then watch as the next 50 comes faster, and the one after that comes faster still. Until one day you're looking at 800 goals and barely remembering the struggle because compound momentum erased the pain. That's how my first goal turned into 800 faster than anyone thought possible. Not through magic, not through genetics alone, but through the quiet, boring and sexy power of discipline and compound momentum. And if you start today with that same mindset, future you will look back and thank you for having the guts to train when everyone else was partying. The clock is ticking. 20 years from now is coming, whether you prepare for it or not. Make sure when it arrives, you're ready. Make sure you're a legend.